Name is Kaylee Higgs, also known as DIY Mum on Instagram, and welcome back to another step-by-step YouTube video. This time I am going to be making some bedside tables out of scaffolding boards. Now, I've done these a couple of times, but I've never done a step-by-step guide. I've done a few reels on Instagram that showed the method a little bit, but I'm going to go in depth and show you everything that I do to make these into a bedside table. So come along, follow me and get some bedside tables at the end of it. Anyway, roll titles. To get our reclaimed scaffold boards, we need to make sure they are in good condition. By that I mean they aren't too warped, haven't got too many cracks in. Most importantly, they are dry. If you're working with reclaimed scaffold boards, you need to make sure that they are completely dry. If you work with wet scaffold boards, it will end in tears. Scaffold boards technically aren't really meant for furniture. They are meant for scaffolding, believe it or not. So the grains aren't tight, which means that there's more movement. Working with reclaimed scaffold board really does need to be done properly. Now, I have plenty of furniture in my house that are made from scaffold boards. It's absolutely fine. I've treated it right. I glued the boards together. I've done lots of steps that I will show you to avoid them from splitting, warping, to avoid as much movement as possible. So we have our two scaffolding boards that I'm going to clamp together. I'm going to be using Gorilla Glue for this. Just get an 80 grit and just smooth down the sides, get rid of all the little tassely bit before we glue them together. Always way, haven't actually got an 80 grit, so the only one I have is a 40, which is quite coarse, but it will do the job. Just need to get the tassely bits off. So once the sanding is done, I can move on to the gluing stage. If you're using Gorilla Wood Glue, I highly recommend this. It's done me well and I use it for pretty much all of my projects. I still need to make sure that when I put them together, they're going to be alternated grains. So one's going to be up and one's going to be down, just to prevent any cupping. This particular Gorilla Glue dries clear and you can sand it straight off when it is dry. I always put more than you technically need over where the two boards are connected. Pour loads of glue in so it can kind of seep in. So that is all I can do for today. To let this dry, which can take 24 hours depending on the temperature, but I normally leave it a day. We'll leave this to dry overnight and then tomorrow I will crack on with sanding and all the other stages that needs to be cracked on with. It is the next day and the scaffold boards are all dry. They're all glued together, so I can take the clamps off now. They've actually come out really well. Sometimes they can be hit and miss. Sometimes, you know, you can have a slight warp on them. You have to really keep an eye on them. But these look great. I'm just going to take the clamps off now and then I can start the sanding process. So I need to measure and cut this. But I am actually going to sand it first, and then once I've cut, I will sand it again, like just over the edges and stuff. I'm going to be starting with a 40 grit. I will do a video that will show the different grits and what's best to use them on what kind of particular furniture and wood and everything. But I'm starting with a 40 because it's really coarse. It doesn't necessarily smooth the wood. It gets a lot of the dirt off, a lot of the glue. So I've got glue on there from when I glued them together. That will come straight off. And then I'll work my way up. I will then go to an 80, which I actually don't have because I'm waiting for them to be delivered today. So maybe I won't go for an 80, but I will finish off with a 120. 120 grit is what I finish at. I got told by someone, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always gone with it, that a 120 grit is where you need to stop at if you're oiling or waxing, because otherwise the wood, anything higher than a 120 grit will close the wood and the oil and the wax won't penetrate and absorb into the wood. I may be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always gone with it. It's always worked for me, and 120 is smooth enough to get the finish that I desire. Start with my orbital sander. I'm using an orbital sander. You can use your hands. You can use a bit of elbow grease, you can use a mouse sander, you can use a bout sander. I believe they are very good. I need to invest in one. I got a cheaper one and I don't really see the benefits in them. I prefer my orbital sander, but that's probably because it's cheap and I need to invest in it. Cue the slow-mo of a bit of sanding. Taken me the best part of an hour and a half to sand. Whew. But it looks good. It looks good. And actually, do you know what? This could be the nicest pieces of scaffold board I've glued together, and the grain in it is really nice too. So I'm happy. I'm a happy chappy. So it's time to start cutting. I want these bedside tables to be 45 centimeters in width. So I want the height of the actual table, so not including the legs, so just the actual drawers. I want that to be 19 centimeters long. So what I'm going to do 12 centimeters on the sides, because I'm not mitre joining these. I'm just going to overlap them. That way it will be roughly 19 centimeters, give or take, with the actual thickness of the scaffold boards. I'm going to measure these out and then cut them to size and get them ready to be assembled. So I have all the pieces here to make the base of the drawers, not the actual drawers itself. I just need to go over the edges with a 120 grit, and just where I've cut them, they just need smoothing out, and then I can start the assembling them together process. Choose which ones I want for the top and the bottom. Obviously the ones that are a nicer grain and just look nicer I will have for the top. Obviously that's going to be on show. So I'm just going to mark with a pencil which one is which so I don't get confused in the process. Okay, so I have my two pieces of wood here that are 12 centimeters long. Then I have the two that are joined together at 45 centimeters long. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue and screw these. So what firstly I'm going to do, I'll just put them together just to see what it will look like. Going to glue the side onto the bottom, clamp it, screw it, and then do the same for the other side. And then also then I can put the top on and do the same, clamp it and screw it and glue it, and yeah. So I've done the bottom, I just need to put the top on. Really, you don't really want screws showing, but because of the depth in between where the drawer's going to be, to do pocket holes and to get kind of a pocket hole up there will be quite difficult. And I'm sure there is tools out there, but I don't have the tools for that. So I am going to go through via the top, but I'm going to countersink it, and then I can put a dowel on it to then hide the screw. So that's one drawer done. Now I just need to repeat the process for the second drawer, and then I can fill in with some wood filler the areas that I want filling. I also then need to actually make the drawers that are going to go inside it. Good morning, it is the next day. I have two bedside tables just sat there, all ready to go for the next stage. So originally I countersunk a little bit of the screws so that I could then fill them with dowels. When I did the other one, it was just easy just to drill with an impact driver, just to screw straight through to the wood, and the screws itself countersunk anyway into it. So I'm probably just going to fill the holes with wood filler, because I'm going to be staining this anyway, so it will they won't really show. So rather than putting dowels in them, I'm going to fill them with wood filler. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to fill it and let it dry, and then I will sand it and move on to the drawers. It is time to move on to making the drawers. I'm going to make these from scaffold boards and plywood. So the bottom of it's going to be plywood, and then the two sides and the front and the back are going to be scaffolding boards. So what I need to do, I need to measure depth in between the scaffold boards, see what height I need for the drawers. I'm then going to measure, cut them to size, and then the next step will be to cut the plywood and fit them together. So I need to make the drawers. This is going to be similar to how I made the breakfast bar drawers if you watch that YouTube video. I am going to use scaffold boards for the front, the sides, and then eventually the back. Going to router out 1 centimetre of each of the scaffolding boards so that it will slot the plywood that I have measured and cut down to size. We'll then glue the plywood into the routed out part of the scaffold boards and then use brackets for internal use as well, just for extra support. Next morning, and I have a new hat on. I've sanded the drawers down with 120 grit. This is just to smooth it over before I apply any wax to it. Now I'm going to take them inside to do this because I've got so much dust and it's very windy out here. I don't want any of the dust going onto the wax and drying and being all rough. Now I'm going to put the hairpin legs on the bedside tables first. This is just so it's easier for me to wax underneath and I don't have to kind of worry about wet wax being on the floor and stuff. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the drawers out, individually wax them. I'm going to paint the plywood a colour, haven't chosen what colour yet. And then the last thing to do after that would be to apply the runners and the handles. And then that is job done. Boom. Come with me and wax. Let's wax. So there is 2 more things to do and then we are finished. It's a wrap. We've got to put the handles on and then the runners, which will then the drawers will go onto the runners. The handles is a pretty simple job. Now I'm not great at maths. In fact, I failed it. I basically find the middle of the drawer and then work from there. There are probably videos on YouTube that will help you more than my method because I work in mysterious ways and I wouldn't want to put that on you. So with regarding the handles, I'm going to put them on. They're going to be central. They're cup handles. They're black cup handles. That's what we're going for. So it matches the legs and this will match my friend's bed who this is for. I will then let them dry for at least 24 hours so that the brown and wax has been soaked in. Then what I normally do, I put a clear matte oil from Osmo oil on top of the actual brown and wax just to give it extra protection. You don't have to do this, but I like to with bedside tables and tables. I don't do it on everything, but things that have got kind of high traffic and can be have spillages from drinks and stuff, so I always tend to put them on those. I'm using these heavy duty runners which are 350mm from Screwfix. I got these from Screwfix. Scaffolding board drawers, they are quite heavy, so I thought if I go heavy duty then there stands more chance of not breaking. What I will do with these, I will measure the same distance from the bottom of the scaffolding drawer internally, and then I will attach them. I will then attach the drawers to them using the same method, attach them at the same distance so that they will be equal and level.